You are listening to Curious Cat, a podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. And I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as I examine what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Hello there. I hope you're well. This week, we will explore a subject I know intimately, how to take care of our beloved pets as they near the end of their lives. I'm in the midst of this for the third time, and I wanted to share the experience with you in case you face this in the future or are facing it now. Because our pets don't have voices, we must make the best guesses we can about their pain, their level of pain, and their will to live, and their desire to cross the rainbow bridge or stick around for a little while longer. I don't profess to have all the answers, far from it, but I'd still like to offer up my experiences so that you don't feel alone when you face this, if you do in the future. So I'm currently in the throes of pet hospice for our 19-year-old Maine Coon, Romeo. He's been losing weight fast these last few months. His body is having a tough time tolerating food. At his last checkup, I guess it was about a month ago, the just out of vet school doctor, she couldn't wrap her brain around end-of-life care. When she noted his feather weight and tooth situation, she began to write down a slew of tests she recommended that we have done to get to the bottom of Romeo's poor health. He's 19 years old. We said it a number of times, and it didn't sink in. Finally, we asked about quality of life. How, since Romeo can't speak, do we know when he's not suffering more than he's thriving? She gave us a list of factors to consider. It was a pre-printed list that was on a bin that she knew about in the back of the door. We left before she could poke or prod him another second. I'm sorry if I come off as rough about that particular veterinarian. I know they're in this profession because they absolutely love animals. They are well-meaning, but this young person simply hadn't had the life experience to see that Romeo was in a different category. He wasn't in a let's stretch out his life as long as possible. We were looking at end-of-life care, and we wanted to know when we weren't selfish bastards for keeping him around. The list she gave us has been invaluable as we've moved into that pet hospice care phase of Romeo's life. So how do you assess the quality of life to determine a course of action? Again, our pets don't have words, and as their guardians, it's on us to observe their changes and declines. It's also our job to ask, again, am I selfish for wanting to keep them going? This is a conversation we've even had to have about our other cat, Opal, who is epileptic, and he'll go through a string of grand mal seizures. And if we can't get a handle on the seizures, we are constantly asking ourselves, is he okay? Is it an awful life? Is he traumatized by this? And often the weather system that triggered this, or the change in medication timing will stabilize those seizures. But we always do a little gut check because we don't want to keep Opal around just for our own, pleasure if it's hurting him to stay alive. So, going back to Romeo and all other pets, we can generalize to every pet. It's our job to ask, am I selfish for keeping them going? Are they deriving joy from life still? And maybe just in different ways. And both of those are heavy topics. Quantifying quality of life helps objectify the process and gives us that more arm's length point of view. So the simplest way to assess is ask, what 3 things does your pet love best? Food, playing, being petted, chewing on toys, sleeping, going for a drive, walks. List 3 things, the top 3. Then ask if they can still participate and enjoy them. When one item becomes a no, then it's time to bring them into the vet to see if pain management strategies or other medical interventions could help. If 2 of their favorites are undoable, this needs serious consideration. Definitely vet interventions. If 3 are gone from that list, it's time to consider end-of-life strategies. If you like a visual assessment, it's worth investing in a desk calendar where each day of the month has a box. Color code red pen with bad day, yellow with so-so day, and green as a good day. Write the pet's weight near the top of the month, then each evening rate the day and make an X in the corresponding color. If you see a pattern of greens turning into yellows, call your vet and have a talk. If a string of yellows and greens turn to red, same thing, call your vet. Another tool that's readily found on the internet is the quality of life assessment form. There are multiple formats, so choose the one that you prefer. Some ask for assessments in the form of happy faces to sad faces, while others assign numerical values from 0 to 1 or 0 to 5. The questions on the assessment can include appetite and water intake, ease of mobility, ease and quality of their eliminations, enjoying interaction with family, enjoying favorite activities, and other categories. Again, this is a great way to measure your pet's quality of life. So what to do next? Say you've had a string of sad face or red marker days. If their condition is found to be terminal, ask your vet what comes next. Tell them not to hold back. Be as completely candid as they would be with, their coworker or their spouse. Ask them to be super specific. Then ask about yours and your pet's options. In many instances, you can use medication and simple adjustments to your home to make their last days comfortable. Blankets on the first floor, baby gates to bar stairways, raised up water and food bowls, even a change of diet from a kibble base to a more liquid version. If you decide to try pet hospice care, be sure to ask your vet if you can keep them on speed dial. If this at any point no longer feels right to you, or doesn't feel compassionate, or feels like too much, maybe it's traumatizing your kids or other family members, or even other pets in the household. When my golden retriever Quincy was diagnosed with a rare medical condition that paralyzed his windpipe flap, it kept it in the open position. It's a terminal condition, and surgery for this strange, rare neurological condition is not only expensive, it usually doesn't work. So when he was diagnosed, the vet said, it is bronchial pneumonia that develops and takes their lives pretty quickly because they're basically, when they eat food, they're aerating it. It's going immediately into their lungs, and then the bacteria takes over. I asked if it was possible to have him in home hospice for a time and learned that he could be at home. With medication, that eased his discomfort, he came home and I adjusted the house to suit him. I slept on the floor beside him. I worked on the floor next to him. He was comfortable. He was no longer having attacks. Then, the 5 minutes in those 3 days when I was distracted, Quincy quietly walked to the darkest part of the house and passed away. Of course, I was shocked and to find him. I was also heartbroken, but I continue to look back on that time and am completely grateful that he was home, not in a vet's office when he passed. Of course, veterinarians now do house calls to, euthanize animals. This occurred in my brother's case. I guess it was a year ago now, he arranged for his beloved beagle Taffy to have her last day and receive visitors. Then she passed away in his arms in the great outdoors with his vet's help. That was beautiful too. Starchy, the kitty that lived life on her own terms. I can tell you her story. Before we were married, I found a cat for my husband at the local shelter. She was lily white with a pink nose, but had this scrappy street sense of someone given up for no unknowable reason. We wanted her to live indoors because, the statistics say that your cat lives longer indoors, but she had other plans, and soon we let her outside. Fast forward 13 years, we built a house a block and a half from that first starter home. When we moved, of course we took Starchy with us, but she snuck out and walked back to the old house. Rinse and repeat. This happened over and over and over, us bringing her to the new place only to find her at breakfast and supper time at the old house. Oh, and by that time in her life, she was completely blind. So she was doing this without the aid of sight. We kept the garage door open at the old house so that she had a 4-inch crack. So she had a place to have complete shelter. And there were blankets, of course, inside the garage and everything. But that year on Christmas morning, I searched for Starchy around the new house to give her breakfast. But clearly she had snuck out again, no doubt. I took a can of food to the old house, and in front of that cracked open garage door, I found a family of 4 perfect robin redbreasts laid out dead beside a very proud Starchy. I gave her the can of food and buried her Christmas gift. Starchy survived until spring, when she finally decided to move to the new house. It was a sunny day, and as I worked in the garden, Starchy basked in the sun near me. My husband was going to the museum with the kids and asked if I wanted to tag along. Starchy seemed good for the first time in a few days, so I said no. I wanted to stay back with her. Sure enough, less than an hour after they'd left, Starchy meowed in a distressed kind of way. I sat beside her on the pavers, and she curled into my lap and passed away. It was shocking at first, but also I felt honored. Today, like I mentioned at the top, I'm taking care of Romeo, our 19-year-old Maine Coon. He came to be in our house when our eldest was diagnosed after many strange, seemingly disconnected ailments with sepsis, which is a bacterial blood infection with a 50% mortality rate. To get better required 2 rounds of super strong antibiotics, and that's how a kitten was negotiated into our future. Recovered and thriving, soon Nora and Doug were visiting pet shops for the perfect kitten. Nora says still that they knew they wanted Romeo right off the bat. It was definitely love at first sight. But how often did a kid get to pick a pet? So they took their time. While they were visiting with other cats, Romeo snuck out of confinement and wandered up to the front of the store. He knew his ticket to freedom was purchased at the cash register. He's always been smart. He sits on command. He drinks from a straw. He is funny as well. When we moved into the new house, he loved this place. More windows, more room to roam indoors in safety. And somehow in the shuffle of the contractors, Romeo snuck outside and disappeared for 3 days. We were distraught. We made posters and put them up everywhere. I received a call after that first night from a woman that lived a half-mile away that reported to me she'd fed a very hungry Romeo just that morning, but he'd left before she could wrangle him inside and call me. I stayed up all night watching the dark streets from the staircase that had the best view. I begged the newspaper carrier to keep an eye out for Romeo, and then, after 3 days, I received a call from a mother and son who believed they had our cat. I dropped everything and raced over to them, where they confessed their love of Romeo. They'd been secretly hoping, just for a millisecond, that he didn't have owners and that they would be able to keep him. We became friends after that, and Laura told the story of a rough, creaky meow she'd heard and then tracked to the top of the Masonic building across the street. She's deathly afraid of heights, but fought through that fear to climb a tall ladder to rescue Romeo. The rest of his life has been no less remarkable. He's stayed at 2 kennels when we've traveled, and both have his photo on their home screens. He's sparkly and funny and loving, and on the front of his puffy gray chest is a distinctive white heart in, white fur. It's always been a natural birthmark. He is Romeo through and through. In the last 4 months, he's been losing weight. His body is clearly in decline. Still, though, he wants to be in life. He tries to eat and mostly keeps it down. He still tracks where his people are and visits us around the house throughout the day. He likes to sit in sunny patches on the stone floor. And he and I share this thing in the morning and in the evening called pillow time, where I put a pillow in my lap and he just curls up in it and sits there for an hour. His vision has declined, so I have to make a show of opening his food and add flourish for him to register the act. He is slowing down, and I've added CBD oil to his routine, which has made him less anxious and more comfortable. Last week, he meowed. I was in the middle of work, and he meowed in a way that reminded me of Starchy's last moments years prior. I stopped everything and picked him up, held him to my chest. I cried into his fur and told him it was okay if he had to leave his body. We would never forget him. We will never stop loving him. He snuggled into me and fell fast asleep. I kept holding him, and then 15 minutes later, he sprung out of my arms, stretched, and ran downstairs, looking back at me as if to say, "Why the hell are you crying?" And so it goes. Yesterday was a green pen day. Today is a red, red, red day. We don't want to be selfish bastards, so we assess his condition often. Romeo, though, keeps letting us know that he wants a few more days. We will honor his calendar. When Quincy passed, our kids were youngish. I didn't know how to aid their grief process. For some reason, I took a notebook out and wrote "Things I Will Miss About Quincy" and left it on the kitchen counter with a pen. We all added to the notebook over the next week or so. We held a little funeral for him in the yard. And when I cried about him being gone, I fought the instinct to hide away and instead stayed out in the open. We still have Quincy's photo on our kitchen wall. Our pets never quite leave our lives, do they? Having a pet hospice isn't easy, and it sure as hell isn't for everyone. I respect all loving, compassionate paths and decisions. For our family, I've wanted to do this. I've wanted our pets to know that they are lovable, even when they think they might not be anymore. And I've wanted my family to know that they are loved for the long haul. They are from folks that honor the good, the bad, and the ugly. We don't shy away from messes. So, do our pets come back to visit us once we've crossed the rainbow bridge? Well, Starchy left footprints on the back pad of concrete where she was every evening in life. They were like frozen on the concrete pad for like a few hours. Quincy brought a snow flurry the morning after he passed. Snow was his favorite weather, and even if there was just like half an inch on the grass, he'd do that crazy puppy run. So the morning after he passed, there was not a cloud in the sky, and this strange microclimate created this mini flurry while I was sitting near his dog bed, sipping morning coffee and crying about him. I found a story in the Daily Mail about Belle Mooney, where she revealed how her dog came to her after death. And even skeptics are now asking, can dead pets really come back to comfort their owners? So earlier this week, Belle Mooney told of her grief at losing her dog Bonnie and how at her lowest ebb, she felt Bonnie came back to her. In response, dozens of you responded with stories of signs from the afterlife from dearly beloved pets, they go on to say in the article. To say it was hard to go on following the death of Bluey, our Bellington Terrier, is an understatement, says one account. 4 days after she died, I woke up at 2:30 a.m. hearing a noise of flapping ears and a chink of a name tag on the collar. This was the sound Bluey made when she got up in the night for a drink of water. My wife told me I must have been dreaming, but the exact same thing happened again. A week later, my wife was sitting on the patio when she felt a nudge on her leg, but no one was around. Bluey used to do this regularly when she was in the garden to get our attention. Later that day, she heard scratching at the kitchen door, similar to Bluey pushing it open with her paws when it was tea time. Another time, my wife experienced a strange feeling that Bluey was in the room and she put her hand down to stroke her. And once, incredibly, I saw Bluey walking past the bedroom door. It was only a very brief sighting, but she appeared as her younger self. The final time I woke in the night and heard Bluey's ears flapping. The sound was very distant. We felt very privileged to have our beloved Bluey come back to see us on numerous occasions. Now she feels all is well with us. She can rest in peace. And that was from David Linton. Here's another account. The first time I was aware a pet soul existed was at the home of a friend I hadn't seen for some months. I suddenly thought that her dog, a large black Labrador, Ben, was unusually quiet. Whenever I had been before, he had bounded down the hallway barking before being hustled off to the kitchen by my friend. This particular day, I was looking through the open doorway into the hall where I saw Ben padding past. Oh, he's fine, I thought, and carried on chatting to my friend. Some time later, though, she said, of course you didn't know Ben had died. I kept it to myself that I had just seen him. Years later, I was not surprised to trip over the recumbent body of my much-loved Labrador Sally in her customary place between the kitchen and the living room doorway, some weeks after she'd been put to sleep. Out of habit, I said sorry. And that was from Janet Smith. Here's another story about a haunting of a pet. 8 years ago, I had a lovely black cat called Neville. One afternoon, a lady knocked on my door and told me she had run over my cat. For 2 weeks, I was truly devastated. One night, I could not sleep and went downstairs to make a drink. And there in the kitchen, to my utter shock, I saw Neville looking at me. It lasted just for a few seconds before he disappeared, but I felt so much better because I knew he was okay. To this day, I can sometimes feel him walking over me in bed. Jean Simmons sent that story. Here's another funny account. I felt Tumba Rumba's spirit next to me. Some years ago, I had a lovely little cat named Tumba Rumba. I worked night shifts, and when I returned home in the early hours, she would normally come to bed with me. Her spot was the pillow next to mine. Early one morning, she didn't appear, but it would often be just as I was falling asleep when I'd feel her jump on the bed and settle in. That's exactly what happened that time, and I dropped off happily. However, in the morning, she wasn't there. I searched everywhere, but couldn't find her. Eventually, someone who lived nearby me told me they had seen a cat being hit by a car. It had run off up a gated alleyway that belonged to another neighbor. I contacted that neighbor, who went down the alley, and sure enough, Tumbarumba was lying there, already gone. I seriously believe that she died and her little spirit ran up to the bed to be with me. And that's from Teresa Cataneo. Here's another story from Barbara Mercy. When our dear old border collie Glenn died, age 15, we were distraught. He never slept in the bed we had bought him as a puppy, preferring a blanket in the stairwell. Every morning he would push open our bedroom door and visit my side of the bed for a pat before going around to my husband's side. The morning after he died, our bedroom door opened and I said, "Glenn's here." I put my hand down and felt his fur, and then it faded away. That night, I dreamed that he was running free in a field with other dogs. It was as though he was assuring me that he was happy and at peace. For a long time afterwards, we took a big step over the place where he had slept to avoid treading on him. Another story comes from Irene Wilson. Our border terrier, Tara, was wonderfully loyal as well as feisty and full of character. A big dog in a little dog's body, people used to say when they met her. At 13, she was suffering from cancer, and the awful day came when I had to have her put down. It was one of the most distressing days I can remember. I returned home very upset and lay down on my daughter's bed, the bed which Terry used to sneak on during the day, thinking of the little friend I had lost. Then, suddenly, from the toy box in the bedroom came an electronic voice that clearly said goodbye. It was an old toy computer that hadn't been used for years. To this day, I'm convinced it was Tara reassuring me that all was well, a last farewell to tell me she was at peace. One final story. Our beautiful Burman cat, Sophie, was a rescue cat. She had a gentle nature, but had been terribly bullied by her previous owners, 2 tomcats, so she was very nervous. She thrived with us, and I was heartbroken when she died of cancer at the age of 16. A few months later, we were thinking of getting another Burman kitten when I dreamt Sophie came over my garden wall, not as she had been at the end of her life, but in full health and looking beautiful. I woke up feeling happy, and later that day got talking to a shop assistant who told me she had 4 cats but needed to rehome the white one as the other cats bullied her terribly. As soon as we saw that poor cat, the spitting image of my Sophie, I knew we had to take her. I lost my husband during her life, and she was a great comfort to me. I believe Sophie sent me that new cat that she knew would need me and I would need it. Sophie had kittens before she came to me, and I often wondered if maybe our new cat was one of those. I never dreamed of Sophie again, but I will see her and all the cats I've had again one day. And that beautiful final story came from Carol Scott. It's no wonder most people, when polled, report grieving for their pets more than for the loss of their parents. Pets offer us unconditional love. They remind us that we are lovable too, in a world where criticism and hate seem to flow freely. The least we can do is make their final days comfortable. I hope you and your pets have many beautiful years of companionship ahead. Thank you for listening to Curious Cat. If you like the content, stories, and information, I'd be grateful if you could recommend it to a friend or family member to grow the listenership. I'd also be grateful if you would help me shout out to my art director and audio engineer. If you're in need of those services, please find their links in the show notes. Also, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.